Hey, Walt here with Shooting the Breeze, episode 12, the formal gun podcast of WaltonPA.com. And it's time for another show where it's Tuesday once again, and I've got a handful of topics to discuss, as well as a slight change to the show. The slight change to the show is kind of going to mimic what I did last week, where before I started the show, I just talked about some random things. I talked about the knives that Cajun Blaze gave me, a suggestion for local news, and a question regarding the Gun Rights Radio Network and whether or not I was going to join. And I really liked the way that flowed. It was just a little 10, 12-minute segment in the beginning where I could just kind of talk about anything, and I didn't really need to set it up or dedicate an entire segment of the show to it. Where I do the featured topic kind of a thing. So I thought I would kick off the show with just some random stuff. I don't know whether this portion will actually have a title or anything, but it's just going to be some of the random things that are on my mind. And the first thing, I wanted to do a little bit of an update on the Spyderco Delica 4 knife, courtesy of Cajun Blaze. Now, as I mentioned last week, Cajun Blaze was really kind and sent me 3 knives to get me into everyday carry, to get me into testing the waters with everyday carry knives. And since that show, I've been carrying around the Spyderco Delica 4. I don't know what the total elapsed time has been. It's probably 2.5 weeks that I've been carrying this knife around in my pocket. And I didn't want to do a full-blown review until later on, but I did want to do little updates here and there, the progress of the knife, how things are working with it and stuff. And, I thought this was as good a time as any to do that. And this knife has just been fantastic. I love it. There is one problem, and that problem is that I've just become completely addicted to flipping it open and closing it, flipping it open and closing it, flipping it open and closing it, and playing with it in the other hand, and seeing how fast I could flip it open in that hand. I can't close it with one hand, with my non-dominant hand, but you get the idea. Just kind of constantly flicking this thing open. It's driving my wife insane. The other day, my wife and daughter were out. My dog was sleeping. I'm sitting around the house with absolutely nothing to do. I'm bored out of my mind, channel surfing, and I came across, I think it was like Gold Rush Alaska reruns were on. And I'm sitting there and watching it, and for an entire show, I must have just sat there and flicked the knife open and closed. At some point, I pulled it out of my pocket and just started playing with it. And the knife is just, aside from this really, really bad habit of playing with it, the knife has been great. I'm constantly looking for things to cut with my knife. I'm a draftsman, so I do some large format plotting every now and again, I do quite a bit of large format plotting. But every now and again, we get a paper size that doesn't fit the rolls that we use. We have 36 and 42 inch wide rolls, and every now and again we'll just get an oddball sheet size. And usually you just you print it out, you orient it as best you can, you fold the excess over, and then I have a razor blade that I'll just slice the excess off with. Not anymore. I reach in my pocket, grab my Spyderco Delica 4 and slit the paper. And for really simple tasks like slitting paper, opening envelopes, cutting open tape on boxes, opening boxes, cutting cardboard, things like that, this knife has been just flawless. I mean, it's fantastic. It's an expensive knife to do just that with, but I really haven't run into any tasks where this knife was put to moderate or even medium use or heavy use. And the toughest thing this saw was I was out working outside, and there was this small, it was a weed or something, but it had a thick stalk to it, and it was getting in the way, and I really couldn't rip it out of the ground. I couldn't get a hold on it really well because it was wrapped around some stuff. So I whip out the knife and just sliced through the base of the weed and just threw it out, and it worked like a dream. It cut right through the stalk. And that is the heaviest use this knife has seen. So I really can't give you any really hard advice on this knife or hard stories on how it's completed these really difficult tasks. But for the for the light duty stuff that I've been doing with it, this knife is fantastic. And I wasn't quite sure how I was going to like the hole in the blade, because anytime that I've been using a knife, I mean, when I was younger and I used to carry a small pocket knife, it had the little groove in the blade where you just kind of stuck your thumbnail in there and opened it up that way. My Zycar knife had a little post on the blade where you just kind of got your thumb under there and flipped it open. And I got kind of used to that, used to dealing with that post, and having the hole in the blade. I thought, it's got to weaken the structural integrity of the blade. How useful is it going to be? But as it turns out, that hole is awesome. It makes for really fast operation of the knife, and it doesn't seem to have made this knife weak at all. I mean, again, haven't used it heavy use or anything, but just it's been fantastic, and really appreciate the knife again, Cajun Blaze. So that is the first sort of random topic discussion item I wanted to talk about. The next is an issue that actually cropped up yesterday that kind of annoyed me. I was over the weekend. I shot a kind of informal fun match at one of my local gun clubs. It was a simple pistol setup, 4 stages, probably 120 rounds, and after I got done shooting it yesterday, well, I shot it Saturday. Yesterday was Sunday. So Sunday I decided I was going to break down my gun and clean it, because I hadn't cleaned it since a USPSA match like 2 weeks before that. So my gun was due for a cleaning, and I got it out of my range bag where it was sitting, since the day before. And, I got out my sort of like drop cloth, where the same thing I always clean my guns on. I broke down the slide, and as I start looking at the gun, I noticed I have some surface rust on the takedown lever. It kind of frustrated me, because I had sent this gun back at around springtime, when I unpacked my guns after the winter freeze of Pennsylvania, and it was actually warm enough to get out and enjoy the range time. I got my gun out, and it was all rusted on the slide. So I talked to Smith & Wesson, and it turns out there was a problem with the batch of M&Ps, and this particular gun just happened to be a part of that batch. So I shipped the gun back to them. They were fantastic. They really took care of me. Fast turnaround time. They replaced the slide, and the gun came back to me in pristine condition. And now, I see the rust on the takedown lever, and it's kind of annoying me a little bit. I've got some rust on 2 of my magazines. I never did mark my magazines, so I don't know whether they were the original 2 that I got, or they were the 2 that I got with the rebate when they were offering it with the gun. So I'm a little frustrated with the little bit of surface rust that I'm getting on the gun. Fortunately, it's only on the takedown lever. I need to call Smith & Wesson and see if I can talk them into sending me a new takedown lever. I don't know whether it's the takedown lever. I don't know whether it's me being neglectful or what the case is. In the case of the magazines, it's probably me, because when we do the USPSA matches, we're dumping magazines on the ground. It was kind of wet a couple of weeks ago, so maybe I didn't wipe it off well enough when I put them in my range bag, or what the case may be. So I'm gonna call Smith & Wesson to see what they say. The magazines, there's some pitting on the one face, and it's binding in my mag pouch a little bit. I mean, I could loosen the mag pouch and eliminate the problem, but I would kind of like to sand it out a little bit, but I don't know whether I need to re-blue or if I need to put some kind of bluing agent on the magazine after I lightly sand them. I really don't know what I'm going to do about the takedown lever. I'll clean it off really well. I got interrupted, and actually the gun's sitting right behind the camera, and I haven't cleaned it yet. It's in pieces, and I was taking pictures of the takedown lever. So I'm going to call Smith & Wesson, see if I can get them to send me a new takedown lever. If not, if it's my fault and it's neglect, I'll just pay for a new takedown lever and swap it out, see what I can do with the slides, or see what I can do with the magazines. But in the meantime, I'm kind of curious. What do you do with your guns when you're finished using them? I had a couple people ask me if I wiped my guns down afterwards, and I really hadn't. I just thought a cleaning every couple of weeks was sufficient, and I've never had a problem with surface rust with any of my other firearms. It's just this M&P that's kind of giving me headaches. So I'm kind of curious What do you do when you're finished shooting? Do you wipe your guns down? Do you just use a dry cloth? Are you using like a silicone impregnated cloth? Are you using like those Rem oil wipes? Are you using some kind of like weapon shield to act as like a rust barrier or something like that? I'm really curious, especially with the polymer guns. Are you doing anything special, or are your guns just holding up? And is it just me or something? Maybe I've just got really corrosive oil in my skin, and I was touching the takedown lever a little too much during operation, and this is what I get. So kind of curious of what's going on, kind of curious what you do with your guns when immediately when you're finished shooting them, and just out of curiosity, have you ever experienced surface rust? And if you have, how have you solved that problem since you've started seeing it? The last thing I wanted to talk about before we get started with the news is I was finally able to get my hands on a Smith & Wesson M&P 22. Not the big M&P 1522, the AR model, the AR looking 22, but the one that's modeled to replicate the M&P pistol series. So I was down at my local handgun shop, the Handgunner down in Topton, Pennsylvania. I went there to pick up a spare M&P 9 magazine so that I had 5 and not 4. And unfortunately, they didn't have any, but I got to talking to the guy behind the counter who I've shot with once and I've talked to a couple of times. And he asked me, "Hey, are you interested in any new toys? What have you been having? What have you been keeping an eye on?" I told him, "Well, I'd still love to see that new Smith & Wesson M&P 22. I just haven't seen it pop up at any of the shops that I've stopped in at." And he gets this big grin on his face and he says, "We got one." So he reaches into the case, he pulls it out, and he says, "I got to tell you though, it's not for sale." He says, we were able to sneak one more in here, and we wanted to keep it on hand so that people get their hands on it and maybe try ordering one or something like that. But they originally got 2, and apparently they sold within an hour or so. And when they got that third one in, it went into the case not for sale, just to show people what it was, so that people like me could actually get their hands on it and play with it and determine whether or not they wanted one, rather than just ordering one and hoping that it was what they wanted. So I got to handle that a little bit. It feels really good. The trigger weight feels about the same. The trigger pull feels about the same. In terms of it, it felt like there was the same amount of creep, and I didn't really test the reset by racking the slide, but the slide portion of the gun feels pretty light. All of the weight is in the frame. Racking the slide, obviously there's going to be a difference because I have a 9mm and what I was looking at was a 22, so the slide is going to feel different, and it did. The slide operation was really, really light. The only difference was the way it works. My M&P, it doesn't take much. If you pull the slide back a little bit, the gun is cocked again. You don't need to completely rack it, and it's pretty heavy. The M&P 22, when you start to move it, you feel like weight building. It's almost like drawing back a bow, where it's pretty light, it's heavy, it's heavier, it's heavier, it's heavier, it's cocked, and then it's like complete let off. So it feels like it's cocking a hammer in there. I think it is hammer fired, but the slide operation felt much different than my M&P 9. But again, it's a 22 versus a 9mm. So I'd really like to get my hands on one and shoot and do some shooting with it. The price point was about $350, and I'm really, really interested in getting my hands on one. It's on the list of things to purchase. It's not next on the list of things to purchase, but I'm definitely going to start saving my pennies so that I can get a hold of one and use it to supplement my 9mm shooting, so that I have a gun that operates and feels the same as my 9mm, only I can shoot for much, much, much less. So that's going to wrap up the random portion of the show. So now it's about time to get into the news and kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the show. All right, well, it is time for the news. And last week I got a really good suggestion from Corey to do some Pennsylvania-based news. and just kind of do the local thing with some of the news. And unfortunately, this week there was really nothing to fold into the news as far as local stories went. I mean, if I were looking for stories about bad guys shooting victims and people getting hurt with guns due to bad guys using them, I'd have tons and tons of articles. Unfortunately, there was no self-defense stories, which I guess is a good thing overall, because it means that I don't know, no one was attacked that had a gun. But I guess on the other hand, there were an awful lot of stories about people being attacked that didn't have guns. So at any rate, all I have for you this time is national news. So with that said, let's jump into the first article of news, which comes from the Lantern, and it was written by Lauren Brown, published on Tuesday, October 18th, and it is entitled "Women Make Their Mark in Pistol Club." And the article goes on to say, 20 Ohio State students lined up in the basement of Converse Hall before a storm of .22 caliber bullets erupted around 7:30 p.m. Thursday. This commotion wasn't the result of a violent attack or a military training exercise. For Janet Jostin, a third year in animal sciences, this was another meeting of the OSU Pistol Club. According to AmericanFirearms.org, at least 120 million Americans own a firearm. Jostin is one of the estimated 15 million to 20 million female gun owners in the United States. Jostin was introduced to guns as a member of the Boy Scouts of America Venturing Crew 698, and she continued to develop her shooting skills as a member of her high school rifle team. Just because it's explosions doesn't mean it's something that girls can do, Jostin said. As vice president of the OSU Pistol Club, Jostin spends her time sharing her passion with a diverse group of OSU students, all with different skill levels. I do wish that more people were comfortable around guns, Jostin said. Sierra Bray, a second year in international studies, is secretary of the OSU Pistol Club. Bray was introduced to guns in 2009 during her time in basic training for the U.S. Army Reserves. It's nice being able to control something that is dangerous, Bray said. At the age of 18, it is legal to purchase a rifle, which is a longer firearm designed to shoot from the shoulder. It is illegal for any person under the age of 21 to purchase or own a pistol, which is a handgun that can be semi-automatic. The Army focuses on rifle shooting, so Bray joined the OSU Pistol Club in order to improve her pistol capabilities. Bray said that without the opportunities provided by the OSU Pistol Club, she doesn't think she would be able to practice shooting outside of the Army. Not all women are drawn to guns for self-defense purposes. Some women inherit their love for firearms from family members. Jackie Staltler, a first-year graduate student in the Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, received her first .22 caliber long rifle when she was just 6 years old. Stotler said that she practiced shooting games, and 3 years ago she began to go to the sporting range with her father. She said it's unusual for daughters to accompany their fathers to the shooting range. I was the only woman and the only young person, Stotler said. Stotler said that there was some tension between her and the older male club members whose jokes and political opinions sometimes made her uncomfortable. Once I was able to feel comfortable, I was able to stand up for myself, Stotler said. They're usually really respectful about it. Stotler said she experiences the emotional highs and lows that come along with any other sports activity. The first time you shoot it and you hit the target, it's just a good moment, Stotler said. It's like any time you do any sports right for the first time. Jostins agreed. She said that she enjoys practicing the focus and accuracy needed for target shooting. I only do target shooting, Jostins said. It helps me relax, helps me block out the things I've been stressed about. Bray said that she likes the statistics of about 150 million women owning guns. There's a lot of people that stick out, or that still think that only men should handle guns, Bray said. I feel proud when I see a woman at the range. Bray said guns can be valuable for self-defense, but she also said that everyone shouldn't own a gun. Stotler and Bray both said that they interact with people who disagree with their passion for guns. There tends to be a split along the lines of gun control, and a lot of fear around firearms is based around myths and stereotypes, Stotler said. People are okay with women having guns, Stotler said. People aren't okay with people having guns. Bray said that people who aren't afraid of guns usually think her hobby is interesting. Some people don't like football, Bray said. Some people don't like guns. And that was the extent of the article. And I thought it was pretty interesting, especially the way they led into it. You know, there was a storm of 22 gunfire outside of the school. And no, it wasn't a military training exercise. And no, it wasn't a violent attack. It was the OSU Pistol Club getting together. And I think that's great. I don't know how many schools have a pistol or rifle team anymore. I know when long before my time, my father talked about, you know, there being, you know, rifle clubs and bullseye clubs and rifles and shotguns and things like that being something that really wasn't taboo at school. I mean, you know, obviously there were pistol clubs and things like that, and more people were involved in hunting at the time. But you know, it's just really nice to see stories of pistol clubs and things like that. You know, I don't know how many universities or colleges do that type of thing, but you know, I would hope that when my daughter is of age to go to college, that, you know, if she is into firearms, which I hope she will be, but you know, if she's into firearms, I really hope there's an option for her to go shooting at school and to practice the finer points of firearms and accuracy in a safe environment, you know, with other individuals. So there's a social aspect. So really cool little article I thought I would share with you about you know, obviously pistol shooting at school, or not just pistol shooting, or I guess shooting in general at school. All right, for the second news article, I have something that came out of Naples, Florida, and it kind of bothered me quite a bit when I read it. I mean, it's a self-defense story, and I guess I don't know, I guess it touches kind of close to home because I'm a parent. But this one is entitled, "Clerk at Dell's 24-Hour Shop Shoots, Kills Would-Be Robber Who Grabbed Child." And this comes from naplesnews.com. And I'm not seeing a credit as to who wrote it or a published time or anything like that. But the article goes on to say, East Naples. A clerk at a landmark East Naples corner store shot and killed a man Tuesday as he attempted to rob the family-run shop and flee with her 1-year-old daughter. The man, whose name was not released, demanded money from Elizabeth Easterly, a clerk at Dell's 24-hour food store, and then grabbed the stroller that held Easterly's baby, said Dell Ackerman, the store owner and Easterly's grandfather. Easterly, 22, was alone during a shift change, running the shop with her 1- and 2-year-old daughters there, Ackerman said. "I almost lost my 2 babies," Ackerman said of his great-granddaughters. The children were unharmed. However, a bloodied stroller remained inside the front door for hours as investigators gathered evidence and interviewed witnesses at the scene. Around 3 p.m., a man entered the store, 2802 Thomason Drive, acting erratically, Sheriff's Office spokeswoman Jamie Mosbach said. As the man made for the front door with the child, Easterly did just as she had been taught. She drew a gun and aimed for the would-be robber's knee, Ackerman said. Bleeding, the man was then tackled outside the front door by a store employee who was about to start his shift and was walking toward the store when the shooting happened. A pool of blood and a bloodied pair of men's athletic shoes marked where the man was held down until deputies arrived at the scene. The man was transported to NCH Downtown Naples Hospital. He died from his injuries. Deputies diverted traffic at the intersection of Thomason and Bayshore Drives for 2 hours following the shooting. Easterly could be seen inside the store as a swarm of patrol cars and investigators blocked off the scene. Both her husband and Ackerman had left the store less than a half an hour before the attempted robbery. Across the street, Nick Merlos and Gloria Angeles huddled under a bus awning with their 14-month-old daughter as deputies took down crime scene tape. Angeles had made a quick trip to Dell's around 2 p.m. I knew there were creepy people around, but not that bad, said Merlos, who has lived in the Bayshore area for 7 years. In September 2009, 3 masked men pistol-whipped a clerk at Dell's, robbed her at gunpoint, and then stole her car. It was a blemish in nearly half a century of serving the community that didn't stop Ackerman from opening the doors again. They've tried to clean the neighborhood up a lot, said Shannon Markham, who lives 2 blocks from Dell's and grew up in the neighborhood. They've succeeded somewhat. 3 hours after the shooting, Ackerman questioned whether he would bounce back. Though his granddaughter and his great-grandchildren were unharmed, the threat frazzled him. Under these circumstances, I would consider closing, he said. I'd rather have life than money. Known as the neighborhood stalwart, he kept his shop open 24 hours a day for 47 years, through hurricanes and family tragedies. But with a dozen employees working to keep the store open around the clock, too many people would be affected by shutting the doors, he decided. As hard as we've worked in this town, are we going to let one person of any kind knock my family and babies out? Ackerman said. No way. The sheriff's office is continuing its investigation. It is unclear if Easterly could face criminal charges in the shooting. As far as the criminal charges go, I would imagine that she should be fine. However, you never really know how states are going to react to shooting, to self-defense shootings. In this case, I wouldn't have aimed for the guy's knee, although it does sound like it did the trick. It took him down, and then the guy ended up dying from his injuries, so she must have hit something important in his leg, and I would imagine he bled out. There's a picture of the crime scene, and you really can't see a lot of what's going on. It's the camera, I guess, was kind of low to the street, and you get a head-on shot of investigators. I mean, you see the bloody shoes and the clothes, and you see what looks like a really wet, slick, shiny pavement that I would imagine is just soaked with blood. But I don't know. Had I been in her situation, I don't know. I'd have probably gone into beast mode and just started blasting away at this guy. As long as I wouldn't hit my daughter in the process. I completely agree with her. You don't take someone's baby, and this guy got exactly what he deserved, and that is to be dead. So, good self-defense story, in which case the mother and the babies are both fine, and the bad guy, well, he's not going to be around to hurt anyone else or try to take anyone's children anymore. So there is an interesting story. Kind of hits close to home. It gives me a little bit of anxiety thinking about myself in a similar situation, because I have a 14-month-old daughter. Actually, she's almost 15 months old now, but interesting story nonetheless. Alright, the last news story I have for you is a little less stressful for me, so let's see if we can get the energy level back up. This one is entitled, NRA Reveals Truth About National Right to Carry Gun Bill, and this comes from Opposing Views, and it looks like it was published on October 23rd. And this one goes on to say, there's been a lot of misguided, unfounded, and just plain incorrect information circulating on the internet lately regarding H.R. 822, the National Right to Carry Reciprocity Act of 2011. Most of the false characterizations typically come from the anti-gun groups and media, but more and more a small cadre of self-described pro-gun groups continually sound false alarms and stir the pot in an effort to be noticed, and to raise money, of course. These repeat offenders peddle mischaracterizations of the gospel and dilute the good work being done to protect the Second Amendment by legitimate groups. Some of the misinformation borders on ridiculous. One group created an email this week, Thursday, October 20th, warning readers that H.R. 822 could be taken up for a vote as early as tomorrow morning. What the author failed to realize is that tomorrow morning, Friday, October 21st, was a day the U.S. House was not even in session, not very confidence-inspiring. The same group claimed H.R. 822 would include anti-gun amendments that would, in turn, create disastrous federally mandated infringements on our rights. But as we reported last week, the House Judiciary Committee, or the House Judiciary, has already considered amendments to H.R. 822 and all anti-gun amendments offered that would weaken or gut the legislation were defeated. The group even decries a review process that they claim will provide a perfect opportunity for more changes. In reality, this review has nothing to do with adding anti-gun amendments. The amendment only requires a study of the law's effects, which would take place after the law takes effect. For the record, H.R. 822 is a good bill and is good for gun owners. H.R. 822 enhances America's right to self-defense by enabling millions of permit holders to exercise their right to self-defense while traveling outside their home states. There is currently only one remaining state, Illinois, that has no clear legal way for residents or for individuals to carry concealed firearms for self-defense outside the home. H.R. 822 would require states to recognize each other's lawfully issued carry permits, just as they recognize driver's licenses and other carry permits held by armored car guards. H.R. 822 does not create federal licensing or registration system, establish a minimum federal standard for carry permits, involve the federal bureaucracy in settling standards for permit, destroy permitless carry systems such as those in Arizona, Alaska, Vermont, and Wyoming. Again, H.R. 822 is a good bill for gun owners. Don't listen to the false claims. Read the bill yourself and read our fact sheet to get the facts. So, I guess there's some misconceptions flying around on the internet, and imagine that. But just a little bit of a reminder as to what's going on with this H.R. 822, and this comes from the NRA. So, I hope it passes. I was a little concerned initially when I started reading about it because, my thought was if it goes to the federal level and the federal government starts determining who can carry in what states, they may also be able to say who cannot carry in certain states and things. And my biggest concern was, winding up with this national carry policy where, all states had to conform, and my concern was, I don't want to lose the shall issue state status that I'm in. I mean, again, in Berks County, it's a matter of going to the courthouse, and in 15 minutes, I can have a license to carry as long as I pass the background check and I provide all the paperwork. So, I didn't want to lose that, but clearly this article tells me that is not the case, and I've been reading up on it a little bit, and obviously my fears from earlier on have turned out to be, just false fears. I have yet to read the bill in its entirety. It's something I want to do at some point in time because it sounds great. I would really like to be able to carry in other states, with my Pennsylvania license. I mean, when I went to Delaware not all that long ago, I had to leave the gun at home. Whenever my wife talks about going over to Jersey to go to the Jersey Shore or something like that, I always dread the thought of having to leave my gun at home. She's got family up in New York, and the same thing. I have to leave my gun at home when I go up to New York. So, being able to use my license out of state would be fantastic. So, if this passes, I'll be pretty happy. So, just a little bit of news on this H.R. 822 bill. All right, it is that time in the show where I talk about featured content, and basically all this stuff is just stuff that I found through Google Reader, collected from the variety of gun blogs that I'm subscribed to and gun websites and things. Content this week was a little tough to come by. I did manage to get all 3 pieces for the show. However, I think I need to broaden my RSS subscription list a little bit. I think at the moment I'm subscribed to between 20 and 30 gun blogs. If you have any recommendations for gun blogs that I should be reading, definitely leave them in the comment section, and I'll look up the RSS feed and get them imported if I'm not already following them, so that I can start looking at their content too. So the first one comes from Shall Not Be Questioned, which is formerly Snowflakes in Hell, and the article, or the video actually that I'm looking at, is entitled New Jersey Gun Laws Explained. Now, this is something that's been making the rounds a little bit. I saw it here first. I saw it over on AmmoLand, and I think I saw it on a couple of other RSS subscriptions, or RSS feeds that I'm subscribed to. And I didn't finally get a chance to watch it until just the other day. And this, I really like this style of video. It's it's kind of cartoonish. There's a lot of pictures and things going on, and then there's narrative over top of all these pictures and things like that, explaining gun laws of New Jersey. And I knew that New Jersey was extremely restrictive, and it is a place that I do not like to go, just because of their extremely restrictive gun laws and things like that. But there are some things on the books in New Jersey that I wasn't even aware of about firearms that are deemed dangerous because they are commonly recognized and things like that. It's a really interesting video. You should check it out. I'll embed it if I can. Actually, it looks like I can because it's on YouTube. But it's made the rounds on a variety of blogs, and it really shows you, I don't know, just how crazy some of the stuff in New Jersey is regarding firearm law. I've been asked a couple of times to go to a USPSA or an IDPA match over in New Jersey, and it's always kind of scared me, and I've never done it, just for fear of being arrested and locked up like that. Like one guy moving from Colorado to New Jersey gets arrested and sentenced for having firearms and things like that. It was just a crazy scenario, and I really do not want to wind up getting pulled over for something, for a simple traffic violation on my way over to a match, and then find out that I'm in violation of the law and get arrested and just all kinds of crazy stuff. So I try to stay out of Jersey as much as possible. But check out this video and learn a little bit about New Jersey gun law. All right, this next piece of featured content is actually a podcast, and this podcast revolves around the Mag 40 class in Utah, which was hosted by the Gun Dudes. And I'm probably going to get crucified for saying this, but I'm kind of getting a little sick of hearing about it. There's been just a tremendous amount of coverage from it, and it's been great coverage, but it's just getting to the point where I've heard it enough, and I'm ready to move on and hear new stuff. But there was a Pro Arms podcast recently where Gail sat down with the Gun Dudes' wives, and she got to talking with the wives throughout, or I guess it was one evening after the Mag 40 class was over. And all the wives got to talking about their husbands and different scenarios and how they view guns, in their homes, whether or not they shoot, how they train, if they have a plan for if something happens around the house, and I thought it was really interesting, and it was kind of fun to hear a little bit of dirt dug up about the Gun Dudes, because I really enjoy their podcast. They're a lot of fun to listen to, and then hearing their wives kind of stick it to them just a little bit here and there was a lot of fun too. I don't remember how long the podcast was. I remember I listened to it in one sitting, which is unusual. Usually I'll burn a podcast, especially like Pro Arms. I usually burn that to disc and listen to it in my car. However, this one I sat down and I listened to in front of my computer, and I really enjoyed it all throughout. It was episode 71. And if you're not familiar with the Gun Dudes, I guess shame on you. You should definitely check them out. They're a lot of fun. They provide lots and lots of content, and I believe they're up to like episode 160 something. And again, this podcast was just a lot of fun to listen to. So if you're a fan of the Gun Dudes, or if you're a fan of Pro Arms, or if you're a fan of guns and wives sort of, I don't know, sticking it to their husbands just a little bit, you should definitely check out the Pro Arms podcast, episode 71, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with it like I did. Alright, this is the last piece of featured content for the episode, and this one is something that I actually went and dug around looking for. Actually, I shouldn't say I went looking for this post in particular, but I was kind of digging deep for content, and I didn't really see anything recent in my Google RSS feed reader. So what I did was I headed over to Gun Free Zone, and I just started paging through the stuff that Miguel had posted, and I went and looked for something to feature on the podcast. Miguel does some really interesting stuff, and I like him. He just seems like a really cool guy. So I go out of my way to try to find something every now and again and feature some of his content here. So again, this is from Gun Free Zone by Miguel, and this one is entitled Non-Traditional Mag and Ammo and Crap Carrier. And basically what it is, it's a photo of more or less a wagon that he uses to carry his stuff around for IDPA matches and things like that. Now, when I attended my first USPSA match, I remember lugging my really heavy range bag around, which I didn't unload. So basically I went to the USPSA match like I would go to the range, only I had extra ammo in there. So I had guns I wouldn't be using for the match, ammo I wouldn't be using for the match, just kind of random stuff, and it made my range bag just incredibly heavy. And I'm kind of lugging it around between stages, dropping it on the ground. And I remember after we shot our first stage, I lugged my heavy bag over to the next pistol pit, and I set it down. And as we're getting ready to shoot, one of the other squads is coming back around to shoot the stage before us. So basically the squad that was on stage 6 was coming around to stage 1, and they walked past us, and I remember seeing a handful of guys with these jogging strollers. You know, and you've seen them before, the 3-wheeled strollers for babies with the big rubber wheels on them, and I guess they have a shock absorbing system in them so that you can run or you can jog and push your baby along with you. And, you know, I see these guys with all their stuff thrown in there. And then, you know, and then there's the one guy pulling the little red wagon, you know, that look like a radio flyer. And, you know, you just see these makeshift, you know, range bag and gear carriers. And, you know, at the time I'm thinking, you know, this is crazy. These people don't want to carry their range bags around, so they're pushing them around in strollers. That's you know, that's crazy. By the end of the match, I understood why they were doing that, because it was a lot of lugging my really heavy range bag around. And that was, I guess that first match lasted like 4 hours or something like that. It wasn't a whole lot of transition from one stage to another, but being out in the sun and running through the USPSA stage, and then after, you know, you get done all that running around in the heat, then it's time to pick up the bag and lug it to the next pit. So it got kind of heavy and tiresome, and then I started to see why these guys were using all these different devices and contraptions to move their equipment around. So seeing Miguel's post on how he's using this wagon for a variety of things was pretty interesting, and he's got a tool bag for other assorted stuff. So it was pretty cool, and it kind of put a smile on my face to see someone repurposing, you know, kind of an old wagon so that it makes things a bit easier on the range. And, you know, at some point, I don't know, if I ever get into like multi-gun shooting or anything like that, I think I'm certainly going to start looking for something to move my equipment around, because it does tend to get kind of heavy. And you know, I just love seeing these crafty ideas for repurposing old stuff, you know, to use at the range. So I thought it was cool, and I thought I would share it, and you should definitely check it out. Well, it is time for the cigar and drink pairing of the evening, and I guess at this point we should probably just call it the cigar and coffee pairing of the episode. I mentioned in last week's post that my wife bought this massive jumbo Econo box of breakfast blend Caribou coffee and wound up with like 80 K-cups, and I've been drinking this stuff like crazy, partly because I kind of want to get through it and have other coffee on hand, and partly because it's nice and mild, and it just kind of goes really well. I mean, it's good in the morning, it's good in the afternoon, and I've been drinking a lot of coffee in the evening lately. It's killing me because I can't get to sleep at night, and I should probably have decaf on hand for times like this. But the coffee seems to work really well for cigars because it's not overly bold, and it doesn't overpower any of the cigars that I've paired it with. So there's nothing really that I can tell you about this coffee that I haven't already told you, which really hasn't been much anyway. But this is, again, it's Caribou breakfast, some sort of breakfast blend. I've got a picture of it, and I don't have a canister handy, and I don't remember the name of it exactly. But that is the coffee that I'm drinking this evening. And the cigar is a Casa Miranda from Nestor Miranda Cigars or Miami Cigar. And this is a cigar that it's got a bit of a steep price point on it, and I didn't know that until after I kind of become addicted to it. Now, a few months back, I got a care package from Miami Cigar. It was right after the IPCPR trade show was over. Miami Cigar sent a bunch of bloggers all of the new product that they featured at the show. Unfortunately, some of us couldn't get to the trade show this year, and Miami Cigar was kind enough to send us product that they featured so that we could actually get our hands on it. And of all the cigars that I started smoking, or of all the cigars that they sent, I smoked this one cigar, the Casa Miranda, and you know, I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I believe there were 2 in that box. I smoked both of them really quickly, and then I spent a couple of weeks thinking, wow, you know, that cigar was really good. I wonder when it's going to come out. I don't know any information about it. I just know that it's Casa Miranda. Well, a couple of months ago, I went to the Famous Cigar Expo, which is a pretty big annual cigar event held by Famous Smoke Shop. And before the actual event started, there was a Miami Cigar event, and Rene Castaneda was there, who is, I don't remember his title, but he's pretty high up in the food chain at Miami Cigar. I believe he's a vice president of some sort. or president of sales or something, and I got to talking to Renee about the Casa Miranda. I said, I got these cigars from Jason Wood, who I believe is the marketing guy. And I said, I really liked them. Can you tell me some more about them? He said, well, I have some in my car. I'll make sure I get you some before we finish up. But he starts telling me about the cigar. And I don't remember the makeup, but he was telling me that it's made in the El Titan de Bronze factory in Little Havana on Cayocho in Miami. And as a result, it's kind of a boutique cigar, low production, and the price point is like $11 or $12. That kind of stung a little bit because I liked the cigar so much. It kind of hurt to hear that it was so expensive. But Renee wound up giving me, I think he gave me 4, and I was there with a couple of people. So I kept 2, and I gave 1 to each of the guys that I was with. I smoked through those pretty fast, and then I bumped into the Miami cigar rep from my area at the Delaware Cigar Festival. His name's Chris. And Chris pulled one out of his jacket pocket and he handed it to me, and that's what I've got here today. I've kind of been saving it for a good time because the cigars, they seem to be kind of hard to come by. I haven't seen them at all in my area. I talked to a couple of shops in passing and they hadn't even heard of it. So it seems like a low production cigar. It goes out when it's finished or when it's available. And it's not something that you're going to see make a huge splash in the market due to the fact that it's made in a small factory and the production is limited. I think El Titan de Bronze only has 8 rollers or something like that. So the quantity of cigars that they can put out is limited because they're also doing other stuff for other people plus their own blends. So again, limited production cigar, which makes it boutique and expensive. But it's good, medium bodied, really good flavor. I haven't had any problems with construction or anything like that. Good, really dense smoke, coats the palate well, easy through the sinus. It is medium bodied but full flavored. It's got a little bit of a wood flavor to it, some spice through the sinus. Just all in all, a really good solid cigar that tends to ramp up in flavor as you go. It starts off medium bodied, medium flavored, and as it gets kind of short like it's getting now, the flavor level intensifies and it gets bolder and bolder as you go. Not something that I think would be overwhelming in the morning, and it's doing really well in the evening. So good any time of the day kind of a cigar. Unfortunately, it's just a bit pricey. If you're interested in trying this cigar, I heard from a little birdie that Mike over at Buckhead may have some, and I may need to give Mike a call and see if that is definitely the case. Someone was telling me that they ordered a 5-pack from Mike over at Buckhead, or a box or something. So if you're interested in trying them, you can pick up the phone and give Mike over at Buckhead Cigar a try. His number is 404-844-0400. And tell Mike you heard about this Casa Miranda cigar, that you just want to try it. And if he's got them, I'm sure he'll send them to you. And I should have probably did some homework and got in touch with Mike to find out what his pricing was and the availability. But rumor has it he's got it. So if you're interested, give Mike a call. Well, this is the portion of the show where I do a featured topic, and as of about an hour ago, I changed my mind. I was originally going to talk a little bit about gun shows, some of the stuff that I watch on Versus, the Outdoor Channel, the Sportsman's Channel, and some of the stuff that the Discovery Network is putting out, like Sons of Guns and American Guns. But I decided to kind of scrap that idea, maybe talk about it later on, because I had another topic come up that I mentioned earlier on, which was the informal / fun match that I did at Ole Valley Fish and Game this weekend. I mentioned in the part where I was talking about my M&P that I did a shoot this weekend, and I kind of want to talk about that a bit. So on Saturday, I got over to the range about 9 a.m. and I got registered for an informal / fun shoot at Ole Fish and Game, or Ole Valley Fish and Game. And these matches have been going on for a little bit, but this is the first one that I went to. I kind of got my months mixed up last month, and I thought the match was canceled, but it actually wasn't. But what it is typically it's a 2-gun match, or actually I think mostly it is a rifle match or a carbine match, but they've been mixing in pistol and rifle, so that people like me that don't have a rifle geared towards competitive shooting can go and have fun. So I headed over there with my M&P just to do the pistol portion, and it's set up over 2 ranges. There is a pistol range which goes from as close as 5 yards out to 50 yards, and there were a variety of targets set up and positions and stuff. And then there was a rifle range that went out to 100 yards. And we were set up on the pistol range. Everyone that I was there with, or everyone in my squad, was shooting pistol only. So we get set up. It's only one pit, and there's a variety of targets set up, and there's a variety of shooting stances and just ways to engage targets. That it made 4 stages out of 1. So basically, the first stage, you start at one point, you shoot 2 rounds, you do a mag change, you engage 3 other targets, then you move from this point over to the other side of the pit, engage a couple more targets, move from there over to about, I don't know, the 25-yard line at the pit, and then you're shooting back 25 more yards, add another couple of targets that are set up, and there's no shoots, and you have to shoot around stuff. And one of the kind of fun things about these matches is they're kind of informal, and they're not sanctioned or anything. So the no-shoot targets are like beer girl cutouts. So you get some targets that are oriented in such a way where you've got a girl with her arm on her hip, and she's holding a beer, and in order to hit the A zone or the IDPA circle for the target, you have to shoot through the space in her arm. So there's kind of things like that make it kind of fun and cool, and of course you wind up shooting a lady in the arm and things like that. But it's kind of fun, and it's a lot of fun. It's cool. It was the first time I did that, and it's kind of funny getting started. You start cold, there's no warm-up shots or anything like that, and just like USPSA matches, that first stage always kills me. My shots always wind up kind of spread out and all over the place, and it's not until stage 2 where I start feeling warmed up and ready to go. So it's kind of an interesting situation that I put myself in. I don't know whether I should kind of warm up like the day before, try to get to the range early so that I can do a little bit of shooting, and then go to the other range and participate in the match so that I'm kind of warmed up and ready to go. But all of the stuff that was set up was really cool. That one stage I already explained. The second stage, I believe, was shooting 50 yards. And what we were doing with the pistol was the first 10 shots were braced. So you're shooting underneath a roof. There's a covered shooting area with benches and stuff, and there's this center post that supports the roof. And the stage allowed you to take 10 shots at 50 yards, and you could brace your arm up against the post. And you shoot 50 yards, and then you transition over to this mat, and you go prone, and you shoot another 10 rounds at 50 yards. And it's kind of interesting because all my shots were high. So we go down there and we start scoring targets, and I've got shots from, like, I don't know, here up, and I ended up missing a bunch. So I didn't do too good on that stage. And then the next stage was set up so that you were shooting on the move, and then you were resetting, shooting weak hand only, resetting, shooting strong hand only. That stage I did really well on, which really surprised me because I am just horrible with weak hand shooting. After that, I believe we redid the 50-yard stage. So it was 10 more rounds standing supported, 10 rounds prone, and that one I hit a home run on. All my shots were going high the first time, so I held low, and I think I dropped 4 shots out of 20. Everything else was right where it needed to be in the chest area, so I was really happy with that. I don't do a whole lot of really long distance shooting like that, so it's fun to have the opportunity to reach out like that and do some 50-yard pistol. I had a lot of fun there. The only thing that I kind of got a little safety check on was reloading. Now, the guy that ran the match is actually the guy that gave me a bit of a safety briefing back before I ever started shooting competitively. We got to talking on the Pennsylvania Firearm Owners Association forum, and we met up at a club, and he was going to give me a little bit of a safety rundown so that I knew what to expect when I went to my first match. And it was really thorough, and he did a really good job. And one of the things that he pointed out that I was doing wrong, that I needed to do, was during reloads, he wanted my muzzle level and pointed down range, which made reloading kind of awkward, because he wants the muzzle pointed down range at the berm, so you're kind of in a weird position where you're reloading up here in front of you, kind of pulled in a little bit, and that's actually not what I was instructed to do later on. I actually got together with a shooting instructor and did some shooting for USPSA and things, and I talked to a variety of people about bettering my USPSA shooting, and they were all telling me the same thing. Reload in the box, get the gun up here, reload so that it's up in front of your workspace, in front of your face, so that you don't have to look at the gun. You can look downrange and keep your eyes on your target while you reload, and that initially makes the muzzle point up and over the berm. So I got into a habit of reloading up here with the muzzle pointed over the berm, and I got called on it at the match. Now, it wasn't a big deal. He just said, he just reminded me to keep the muzzle level and pointed down range. So that was a bit of that was the only real issue I had at the match, aside from missing targets, especially that first time around. But I had a whole lot of fun. I got together with a guy that I shot before with shot a USPSA match with, and he did really well. He brought a friend along to watch who was interested in getting into competitive shooting, and he seemed to have a good time. I met a couple of people that were competitive shooters as well, or interested in getting into it. And this match at Ole was very new shooter friendly. The safety officer was over you constantly, and he was reminding you of how to address the stage, because there was a set way to do it. He wanted you to shoot offhand in certain situations, strong hand in certain situations, and he was resetting you so that even though they had one pit, he was able to continuously reset you so that you were engaging at the same targets a variety of ways and increasing challenge and things like that. I didn't stick around for the rifle portion because I didn't have a rifle, and there was no real sense in me going up to the rifle range with my pistol. I mean, it would have been a little fun to shoot at 100 yards, but I didn't want to just blast ammo at 100 yards, and I just called it a day. So I wound up having a whole lot of fun. I can't wait to do it again. It was a lot of fun, although I enjoy USPSA matches more, because they have a variety of stages to go through, and it's not set up like this fun shoot was, where he was telling you how to address targets and things like that. Again, space is restricted, but at the USPSA matches, you just kind of get there. Okay, here are your targets. These are what you have to engage first, and in which situations. All the other ones are up to you. You engage them however, whenever. And I find that a lot more fun. It makes it more challenging, kind of like chess, where you have to figure out a game plan and change your strategy on the move if you screw up, like I do a lot of times. But again, it was a lot of fun shooting the match. I'm going to try to embed some of the shooting into this video so that you can see what was going on. I took my my Contour HD camera along to record the fun. I'm not quite sure when or if scores will be posted. Nothing was timed, so I'm kind of interested to see how the scoring worked out with shots on target and stuff like that. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that. If that pops up, I'll include that in the post with the video portion that I'm going to do later on. So my throat's getting kind of dry. I'm out of coffee. My cigar's getting really short and hot. And I think I'm getting close to that 1 hour time frame that I like to stick to. So with all that said, I'm going to close out this show. But before I do, I want to thank you for sitting through another episode of Shooting the Breeze. I want to thank you for all the support that you've given me throughout the episodes, all 12 of them. I look forward to your comments on my personal blog, on YouTube, or on the variety of other ways you can get in touch with me on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, things like that. So again, thank you for watching, and happy smoking, happy shooting, all that fun stuff, and take it easy. I'll catch you later.